Dear viewers, today we present to your attention 4 different stories. I found them all very fascinating, so I decided to voice them and publish them on the channel. If you also like these stories, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel under this video and share your opinion in the comments. And let's get started. Story 1. We met 9 years ago and have been married for 8. We have 2 wonderful daughters, ages 6 and 8. We're not far apart in age. I'm 33 and she's 30. We met when I was just out of college. Over the next 9 years, I made some progress in life. Now we're quite settled, with a house, 2 apartments, 2 cars, and we travel. In the early years, we loved each other deeply. Like most couples, we had our share of arguments. Over time, the intensity of our feelings faded. We only did romantic things like giving flowers twice a year and going out to the movies or shopping centers on weekends. During the weekdays, work consumed us and life became routine. I love my wife and daughters, although I realize now that I haven't expressed it or shown it in recent years. I thought we had an ideal family. My wife is decent, smart, and beautiful. I always knew men found her attractive, but she never gave any reason for doubt. In the last few years, even though we had everything we needed, I worked from home in the evenings to provide more for our kids. Work problems also added stress. As a result, my wife and I barely saw or spoke to each other during the week, just in the mornings and before bed. One day I noticed a message on WhatsApp. She quickly deleted it, saying it was from a friend. I noticed she never let go of her phone, and it was always locked. This made me suspicious. I retrieved the call history and the deleted messages from the past week. What I found shocked me. She had recreated all the tender messages, love confessions, and poems from our early relationship with another man, hiding it from me. There was even evidence of infidelity. I never thought this could happen to me. We had no secrets. I never cheated on her, not even in my thoughts. I tracked the calls and saw they had been talking for about 2 weeks, meaning I caught them early. The man turned out to be her coworker in the next office. I decided to confront my wife. We talked for a long time. From the call logs, I noted they spoke during the day and evenings, even for half an hour when I and the kids were home. It was shocking. At first, she denied everything, claiming it was just communication and that she loved him only in the texts. But under pressure, she admitted to being intimate with him twice. I was at a loss for what to do. I love her very much, something I realized even more clearly after this happened. I couldn't imagine life without her and our daughters. Everything we built over 9 years seemed to fall apart. She repented and asked for forgiveness, explaining everything. The man wasn't wealthy. Quite the opposite, and they bonded over shared interests like music and movies. They had lunch together and other activities. She said I had stopped paying attention to her, and I admit I was at fault. She wanted to feel young and loved again. Why didn't she tell me directly? He constantly complimented her and showed interest, something I hadn't done in years. She claimed she planned to limit it to just messages and new emotions, but physical attraction took over. I understand it's easy to woo a woman overwhelmed with work, household problems, and kids. But how could she let this romance start again and go through the whole courting phase? She was always emotional and romantic, writing diaries and poems in her youth. But to throw everything away like this is something I may never understand. Nevertheless, I decided not to act rashly and to watch her first. After many emotional talks, she agreed to write to him in front of me, stating it was a mistake. She loved me, wanted to keep our family, and asked him not to contact her again. He replied that he hadn't expected things to go so far and understood, then went silent. The next day I told her this was her only chance. There wouldn't be another. I don't know if I can ever fully forgive or forget. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. She swears she will never cheat again, cries, thanks me for giving her a chance, and promises nothing will ever happen with him again. She regrets everything, realizing too late how quickly he moved on, and how much she loves me when the real threat of losing me became apparent. I don't know if I can forgive not just the physical betrayal, but the emotional one, perhaps even more so. I can't understand how she let this happen behind my back, neglecting her husband and kids. If you can help me understand, I'd be grateful, but it's not mandatory. I'm just asking for your thoughts. Story 2. Hello, everyone. I'm 35 years old. My wife is 5 years younger than me, and we've been married for 14 years. Yes, if you've done the math, she got married at 16. That's just how it happened. Maybe that's why things turned out the way they did. She didn't get to enjoy her youth, didn't have fun, didn't experience the joys of life. When we met, I didn't know her age. She wasn't even 16 yet. She got pregnant, and I joined the military. Then her dad showed up at my base telling me to either marry her or face serious consequences. He promised to get me out of the military if I agreed to marry her. So we got married, and love came with time. She was a good, beautiful, but slightly spoiled girl. At 16, she gave birth, and we had a big wedding. I worked hard, and we bought a nice house. 5 years later, our second child was born. We lived well, like an average American family. I didn't drink, cheat, or hurt her, or the kids. Many say that when women cheat, they become distant or irritable, but I didn't notice any changes. If it hadn't been for a random event, I might have never found out. One day, I came home unexpectedly to grab some papers, and there he was, a young guy, getting dressed. Thankfully, the kids weren't home. I wanted to kill him, but she stood between us, calmly telling me not to touch him. She said we'd talk later and asked me to go back to work. Later, I received a text from her, asking me not to do anything stupid and to come home. I thought about kicking her out, but I didn't want to upset the kids. I returned home, and everything seemed normal. Dinner was ready, the older kids were doing homework, and the younger ones were watching TV. I asked her how we were supposed to continue. She responded calmly, asking if I was unhappy. She reminded me that the house was as much hers as mine, and if I wanted to leave, I could. But she wasn't going anywhere. She even offered to help me pack. I asked why she did it, what I had done wrong. She calmly told me not to be dramatic, that life isn't always fair, and that her body doesn't belong to me. She admitted she didn't love me anymore, and I knew that deep down. I asked if she loved the other guy. She laughed, saying love wasn't the issue. It was about obligations, family, and raising our kids. She suggested I could have someone else on the side, as long as I didn't bring them home or waste family money on them. If I wanted a divorce, she wouldn't stop me, but she reminded me that the house was hers too. If I decided to stay, she'd be happy, and so would the kids. She assured me she'd never deny me affection. That was how our conversation went. Interestingly, there were no tears, no begging for forgiveness, no apologies. I haven't made a decision yet. I don't want my kids to grow up in a broken family, and I doubt she'd remarry. I have nowhere else to go, and there are no jobs back home with my parents. Splitting the house seems unfair to the kids, and I doubt I could afford a new place right now. She promised not to bring anyone else into the house and said she wouldn't end our family until our youngest turns 18. However, she couldn't promise she wouldn't see anyone else. What should I do? Thanks in advance for your advice. Story 3. I'll put it this way. Our romance started immediately. We decided to make it official and get married in less than a month. A year later, we had our first daughter, and then a second one. We went through a lot, like everyone does. We faced financial struggles, lived without any help, and our kids were often sick. Especially the older one, who needed a lot of medicine. I worked 12-hour shifts both day and night. My wife also worked hard, taking orders at home as a seamstress. By 2018, 2019, and 2020, I noticed our relationship cooling off. She started blaming me for everything, saying, "You can't do anything right." She was always at work from morning till night. Even on weekends she worked, often with the kids. She also began making strange accusations about my parents, claiming they were talking behind her back and that I wasn't defending her. I ended up arguing with my parents because of it. Friends who used to visit us regularly stopped coming, and I thought it was my fault. In January 2020, we were shaken by the death of her father in another city. She inherited some money, and after that, things got worse. She constantly blamed and ignored me. Then I found a document about an abortion. I asked her about it, and she blamed me for being inattentive. A week later, she told me she wanted a divorce and moved out in May. By the end of May, we were officially divorced. She assured me that the reason for the divorce was me. She said I treated her and the kids poorly and that I needed to change. She promised that after settling the inheritance documents, We would try to rebuild our family in the fall. I believed her. I worked all summer, sent her money every month, and did everything she asked. But, as you might guess, she didn't come back in September. She rented a house and moved there with the kids. She would take groceries and things from our apartment when I wasn't there. Every time she called, I would rush to her and do whatever she needed. I took care of the kids, visited her at work, and more. Her attitude towards me was worse than in the spring. My work situation deteriorated and I had to quit. In November, I saw her getting into another man's car when I went to our daughter's school. That weekend, my eldest daughter told me everything. Their mom had forbidden them from telling me anything, threatening to leave if they did. Initially, he was just a friend who gave her rides to work. But by the time I sent her and the kids on vacation, he had become her lover. My parents had seen them together back in 2018, and they tried to warn me. The abortion was because of him too. When she inherited the money, she divorced me and he left his wife, whom he had been with for 18 years. I confronted her, but she played the victim, saying it was all lies and that the kids were making things up. She claimed everyone was against her and that she was innocent. She said she wanted to come back, but that the kids had betrayed her. I didn't believe a word she said. All the strange things from 2018 made sense now. The first few months after our split were tough. I drank, even though I didn't want to. My parents and friends helped me through it. It's gotten easier since then, but the pain and anger still come back sometimes. I've since found a new job and don't help her anymore, except through child support. The rest of her needs are now her new man's responsibility. I've learned that after such a betrayal, there's no going back. The more I helped her, the worse she treated me. When I was clueless, she took everything and laughed at me behind my back. I've met her new man. He's 52 and she's 33. She's his third wife and he already has kids and a grandchild. He told me he didn't like the way I talked to my ex and that I should give her more money. Now that I know about them, they're not happy. Life goes on. You can't live in the past. Those who betray once will do it again. Unfortunately, the kids are the ones caught in the middle, just like in all similar situations. Thank you in advance for your support. I need it now more than ever. Story 4. Chasing happiness and a decent life in today's world, a man often finds himself working tirelessly from morning till night. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. Sometimes without weekends or vacations. He comes home only to have dinner, sleep, and change clothes, ensuring the apartment is well stocked and the fridge is full. He makes sure his wife has an annual membership to a spa, a fitness club, a hair salon, and other essential activities, without which a modern woman would be overwhelmed by household chores. Despite all the household gadgets like washing machines, kitchen appliances, dishwashers, and cleaning vacuums, she still does everything by hand every day, from morning till night, barely managing to find time for her spa appointments, fitness sessions, and pedicures. Of course, no self-respecting woman would use public transport. She needs a car, which means her husband must work hard. I worked like crazy, doing everything for my family to ensure my wife always looked well-groomed and beautiful. We lived together since 2012, and I didn't ask much from her. Clean clothes, a tasty breakfast, and dinner. I had lunch at a cafe near work and wanted a bit of affection when I got home. All weekends were dedicated to her, going wherever she wanted. I was entirely at her disposal. In the summer of 2017, my wife wanted to take a vacation and suggested we go to Florida. She liked the idea, but I couldn't leave work for 3 weeks, so I suggested she go with her mom. Strangely, she wasn't too upset. She showed some mild displeasure, but seemed to know I wouldn't go. They left with tearful goodbyes, promises to call every hour, and assurances that she would miss me terribly. During the first week, she called from the resort or answered when I called. In the second week, there were 2 missed calls, which she later explained by saying she left her phone in the room or was swimming in the ocean. By the third week, she stopped calling, and when I did reach her, she said everything was fine and there was no need to spend extra money on calls as the vacation was ending soon. I picked them up from the airport. My wife looked tired and unwell, but tanned and satisfied. That night, there was no joyful, passionate reunion because she claimed she had a stomachache. There was no love the next day or the following days. Then she expressed a desire to stay with her mom. A day later, I was summoned to the police. The investigator suggested I confess, saying it was a family matter, but why rape my spouse? I was shocked, but presented with a gynecologist's and medical commission's reports and my wife's statement. I was released on bail. I called my wife, but neither she nor her mother answered. I visited, but the door remained shut. You might think everything resolved itself, but no, it went to court. During the pretrial period, I couldn't speak or see my wife or mother-in-law. I might have ended up in jail if not for my wife's best friend, who testified in court that it was all a lie. She revealed that my wife had a great time at the resort with men of different ethnic backgrounds. On the penultimate day, she had an incident with a man which caused her injuries. My wife accused me to save her reputation as a respectable woman and hoped to take everything from me since I'd be in jail. The evidence was the text messages and photos my wife's friend provided, showing her with different men. I didn't file a defamation suit. The case was closed quickly, and we were divorced within 3 days after filing. I immediately filed for divorce once exonerated. Although some property was divided, which my wife didn't contribute to, it was considered joint marital property. Now, I am with that same best friend. I didn't know she was so beautiful, and most importantly, honest. She is undemanding, very attentive to me, sometimes bringing me lunch at work. I like her a lot. We've decided to live together for now, and see where it goes.